Hello, I'm Pastor John of Crossway Multinational Church, and this is episode 6 of our Crosslight podcast. This podcast is a short version of the sermon I preached on August 17th of this year. People often quote the 80-20 rule. That means that 80% of the outputs are determined by 20% of the inputs. So when people raise money for a big initiative, the expectation is that 80% of the money you raise will come from 20% of your donors. Many people will give a little bit, but that 20% is going to give the bulk of what you get. The same can be true of an organization, of a business, saying that 80% of the good that comes because of 20% of the people, that a few people are responsible for the major part of the good that comes. And since the church is a human institution, people will often say the same thing of the church. 80% of the work that's being done is being done by 20% of the people. 80% of the good comes from 20% of the work. And yet it seems that God has a different vision for what his church is to be like. Just going to look briefly at some verses in Ephesians 4. And I'm going to summarize these sections first and then look at verse 16 more carefully. But as the church is described in Ephesians 4, the Apostle Paul first emphasizes the unity of the church in verses 1 to 6. He says there is just one church. There is one faith, one baptism, because there's one God and Father who is over all and through all and in all. He emphasizes the unity of the church. Then in verses 7 to 10, he emphasizes the fact that there is a diversity of gifts and abilities, that not everybody has the same abilities, the same calling, the same gifting by God for serving in the church. And in verses 11 to 13, he highlights that there are some people who are really helping others, all of us, do the work of the church. And as all the people serve, the body grows. So then we come to verses 14 to 16, and especially verse 16. We hear this very clear statement. So verse 16 says, "From Christ, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work." It says the whole, the wholeness of the body, the whole church is joined and held together at every intersection, at every place where pieces come together. It grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. And just want to highlight that expression, as each part does its work. There's not an 80-20 rule in the church by God's design. That the big idea is that the church grows in health and maturity as every part does its work. And that's the goal. That's our hope. That's our hope for us as a church. As we think about this radiant vision for what Jesus has for his church, we want to be what he intends, and that is for all of us to be working together. And so the first application is for each of us to say, to do my part, that every part matters. Sometimes we act and think as if some of the parts don't really matter. Not long ago, I was having some knee pain and balance issues, and so went to my doctor, who sent me to a physical therapist. And one of the lessons that I learned is that my big toe and my little toe weren't doing their work. I was trying to balance without them. And it turns out the big toe and the little toe really matter. And I've had to help them do their work. I've had to exercise so that they are a part of my body functioning well when I walk. And so these little parts that seem like they're irrelevant were affecting the whole. This is the same image that we have of the way the church works. All the parts matter. And when some parts aren't doing their part, it affects the whole. And when every part works, the church grows in health and in maturity. And so the call is for every one of us to do our part. And so that raises the great question of, how do I find my place? Right? How do we find where it is that we can be serving and doing what we should be doing? And it's not a simple thing, and yet I think there's some really helpful guiding questions. I found these to be helpful with people. One is, are you more of a word person or an action person? And some people find being in conversation with others so satisfying, and they're good at it, and it's a very rich place, and they feel like they're helping people grow through it. And others find that so frustrating because they just want to be able to get things done. And And sometimes the people who enjoy words think it's just so distracting if we're actually out using our hands. And we each struggle to understand a bit about what it's like to be on the other side. And so it's an important thing to say, are you more of a word person or are you more of an action person? Another question is, are you more energized by people or are you drained by people? Some of us find being with others just something that's so energizing and we could just keep doing it on. And others find that so tiring. And so it's important to understand how God has made us. Another question is, do you like being in the action, so to speak, being one who's having to make the key decisions and take action and do things when it's challenging? And do you find that satisfying? Or are you more of a support person where you would like to help others do that part that seems more pressure filled? Both are really critical. Both really matter. And yet we're not all made for the same thing. And so some questions like these that help us better understand ourselves and how God has made us. Another part of finding our place is just to try things, to take the risk, to try a way to serve. And if we realize, this isn't a great place to serve, that's good learning. So we are very supportive of people trying things. And even if it doesn't go well, that is a good part of the journey to have tried. And in this also, it's important to ask for and to give loving feedback. If you see people serving in a way that is just so good, let them know. And if you see them trying and saying, this doesn't really fit them, to have the courage to say, yeah, maybe there's another place that would fit better. And we need to have the courage to ask for and really receive feedback well. Another thing I found helpful for many people is what's called a spiritual gift survey, a set of questions that ask about things we find satisfying, things we've tried and have gone well or not gone well. And I've seen that this sometimes helps us see areas where we can serve that we didn't realize, or help us to realize we've had an image of ourselves serving well in a particular place, but that's not really us. So we want to find our place through trial and error, through experimentation, through good conversation, and through good tools. Two questions I want to raise is, first, how do we help more people contribute in our small group? If you're in a small group and just so excited about that, sometimes small groups operate centered around one person or maybe two people, and they do everything. They host, they provide some food, they're in touch with people when we're organizing the time, they lead the conversation, and that's not all bad. And yet we're convinced that group will be healthier and more mature if more people contribute in the small group. And so in your small group, it'd be great to have a conversation about what can different people do? How can we have more people do different parts of this and see how it goes? And the same thing is true for us as a church, that we want to find ways to help more people contribute to church life. And we want to help each other so that it's not 20% of the people doing 80% of the work, but spread through all of us, having all of us contribute in the ways that we can. And we're convinced that leads to goodness because Ephesians 4 says, from Christ, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. I'm convinced that the church and its people are healthier when more people do more of the work. And that is especially true in a diverse church, that the more people are involved, the more differences we bring into the experience together. And it also is key to being a radiant church that Jesus intends for his people. And so we long together to help more of us join in the work in the ways that we've been made with who we are to the glory of God together.